There were two big trends that I saw. One was sort of a more direct discussion around AI and how AI methods can be useful for how we do research. And then also secondarily on sustainability, on how user innovation can help with sustainability issues around the world as well.
We seem to have a lot more on entrepreneurship because there is a diffusion problem with respect to user innovations. And so people are starting to think about that. I would love it if they thought a little further also about free diffusion rather than just entrepreneurship, but I'm sure that will come.
What we see is that we connect to other fields, that we also, the community started with a phenomenon of users, and now we reach out to other disciplines, to strategy, management, in large marketing and so on. So it's not more a niche phenomenon, but we see there much larger impact on other disciplines.
Crowdsourcing is a big trend. We have many, I think a couple of sessions on that phenomenon. I think there's always an interest in lead users. I'm hoping that more is going on with the role of corporations in open and user innovation. So those are things I'll be looking for.
You can think about at the very beginning of open source software, it's kind of a state of mind. People highly believe that software code should be accessible to everybody, and everybody should be able to build on top of each other and freely access each other. So it started from this small community of kind of individual hacker software developers. Now, open source software has grown tremendously over the past couple of years. And more recently, you see that this community is being composed less and less of these individual hacker mindset developers, and you see more large corporations getting into it. So kind of the biggest player in open source right now, Microsoft or Google or Facebook, are these large corporations. So there's definitely this shift in the people who make up this community. And I think that's one of the more startling trends that we're starting to see.
The users are innovative and they develop new things together within communities, and I'm interested, and I also see it as an important trend, how new technologies, especially artificial intelligence, may empower them and allow them to do things they've never dreamt before. And so I guess it's really interesting how technologies shape the way users innovate, and also how innovation gets democratized by technologies.
The biggest trend that stands behind everything that is happening right now, and this is called digitalization. So we are living in the era of new technology. Of course, it has been started long ago, but now we are prepared enough to work with these new technologies. And the question how innovation will change in the era of digital technologies.
There are more people thinking about user innovation and open innovation. I think user innovation is more important. And we are now looking at user innovation in all economic sectors, not just the business sector, not just the household sector, but also the public sector and other non-profit organizations engaged in this sort of activity. This is a major step for us. We are also going into a digital economy. We're in a digital economy where it is easier to do user innovation. This is important.
What we see is, the development of drugs and distribution and marketing has been mainly the activity of big pharmaceutical companies. But we now see decentralization, either hospitals deciding that they are going to produce their own drugs, or even individual pharmacists take the decisions not to buy the drugs from big pharmaceutical companies because they're too expensive than producing themselves.
Challenge is that we're strong in identifying new phenomena. So initially the research is descriptive, but if you look at it from an academic perspective, the challenge is to develop it in such a way that you can get published. That's for sure, because if you're the first to mention something, you always face resistance, and that's what happens at journals as well.
putting together a coherent and comprehensive theory that stands up to empirical evidence, even if the evidence is fragmentary, is a very big challenge.
Coming up with new and interesting methods. Because we all have that data, that is not an advantage anymore, both in publication but also I think in terms of insights. It's really about how to generate the most valuable information from that data. So we need more methodological innovation, and as we've seen, like applying text, speech information, video information to get a more holistic view of the issues.
What's happening is that people are bringing in other fields, which is wonderful, like cognitive psychology and so on. So we're really broadening our reach as an interdisciplinary field. It's very exciting.
With a shift in the types of participation in this type of open and user innovation, obviously there has to be different policies that kind of regulate what is happening. So that's definitely one challenge. I think another challenge is with different types of people being involved in this, there's bound to be some sort of inequality with when you're expanding the participant pool. Obviously some people are going to be thriving in this environment more so than others, so you might create some type of inequality structure. And especially with the inflow of organizations, it's possible you might think that all of the value now captured. Before it was the individual developers and the community who are working towards better software development. Now maybe all of the values are being captured by these large corporations under the name of open innovation.
The biggest challenge are the regulations, because regulations are really meant for mass production by pharmaceutical industries, and the others is the conservatism of doctors, because they want the best for their patients, and they're very hesitant if somebody comes along and says, well, I made this in my own pharmacy and it's as good as the product from Pfizer or Sandoz or whoever. So it's the doctors and the regulators, the government.
It's very difficult to translate the ideas to other patients, for example. So this diffusion of user ideas in healthcare is one thing. So they try to solve this, for example, by creating patient platforms on which they share solutions with each other. But it can be difficult, it can be a challenge. Secondly, and that's very important, is that healthcare is a very highly regulated area. So there are lots and lots of rules and regulations at play, and these user-initiated products are not always in line with these regulations, and so there is this constant struggle of balancing actually to allow for this innovation on the one hand, but also make sure that these user innovations are safe and adhere to the regulations, because the regulations are of course there to protect consumers and protect citizens, so they're there for good reasons. So there is this balancing act.